Welcome back to Ithaca BJJ. Today, we examine some high-level black belt technique from Professors Marcos Fontes and Robbie Roberts. Let's get started. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this grip here, because that is the star of the show. You'll see what I mean in a moment. Notice how deep that grip is, and how Professor Fontes goes out of his way to keep that grip nice and tight, and he continues to establish it. So there's that grip, and he has this sleeve, and he has this leg trap. This is ripe for a sweep. But this is not Professor Robbie's first rodeo. He brings this arm across to negate that sweep attempt. Now, Professor Robbie is a big guy, and he has a pressure game. So he brings his head down, and he traps this hip and this leg. But watch this foot over here on this hip. Notice how Professor Marcos brings his hips nice and high while he's on that hip. Watch. Right there. You see that? This is actually what he taught this day during this seminar. In this configuration, he was looking to get up over his shoulders and get to Robbie's back. Robbie saw that coming, so he goes to his feet. Professor Marcos traps that leg, and Robbie smartly comes back down to the mat to prevent the sweep. Now, there's that grip. Keep watching. Now, some of you may be thinking, shouldn't Professor Robbie just break that grip? But let me tell you, Professor Marcos has judo grips. He has grips like a gorilla. I have never felt grips like that before. And notice, again, how he holds on to that grip and he keeps making it deeper and deeper. Now, he tries to come here for a cross collar choke, and Robbie sees it coming, and he quickly escapes. And you see them laughing there because it's like, yeah, I saw that. He had just taught that day during the seminar. Notice how Professor Marcos has not let go of that lapel grip. So now he's coming here to work his way around to the back. So Robbie gets that foot out and stands up to prevent that attempt. Again, Robbie is using his pressure game, but watch this. Watch this. Here it comes, folks. Do you see what's coming? Right there. Traps that leg. He has that arm, which brings him right up on top. What's impressive about Professor Marcos' game is the patience. Look at the patience. And now he gets on top. Now you think here, Robbie has this half guard here, so you think he's safe. But if you thought that, you're wrong. Because Professor Marcos has his head wrapped up nice and tight. And since Robbie doesn't totally have that half guard secure, he's able to come right up into mount. And here he traps Professor Robbie's arm, and it's difficult to see from this angle, but he pulls off a nice Americana, and there's the tap. So we start back here on our knees. Now what you're going to notice now, you're going to notice Professor Robbie doing a little bit more grip fighting. And so he catches Professor Marcos here, grabs this ankle, and drives his head into him, takes him to his back. But you would be mistaken if you think that Professor Marcos is not in control here. Again, Robbie comes up, attempts to use pressure. Now, there's that grip again, that same grip. Folks, This is the star of the show. Now I want you to watch this next exchange. I want you to pay attention to that grip the whole time. Look at that. The entire time, he does not let go of that grip. And Professor Robbie falls right into a triangle trap. But he gets that arm out of there right away. Professor Robbie's keeping himself nice and low, continuing to apply that pressure. But you'll notice he's mostly on the defense throughout this entire roll. Now, notice here, there's that grip again, but Professor Robbie keeps his chin nice and tucked this time. And so, although it looks like it's the same grip, it's not quite as deep as before. Professor Marcos comes up for that sweep, and then Robbie uses his pressure to get him back to the ground. You're going to see this throughout this roll. Now here, Professor Robbie traps that arm. He's got control of that arm. But then Professor Marcos goes up to grab the sleeve, and you notice Robbie's being a lot more careful here. He is not allowing the grip on his lapel, and he is fighting the grips even more. Every time Professor Marcos comes up, Robbie uses his weight and his pressure to get him back to the ground. Folks, we're witnessing a real cat and mouse game here, and Professor Marcos, he's a really big cat on the mats. Comes up again for the sweep. Robbie wraps him up, gets him back to the ground. Again, Robbie attempts to use pressure because he needs to get that guard open in order to mount any kind of an attack. And Professor Marco, there he is again. He's looking for the now. Notice this time, Robbie right away gets rid of that grip. When you have someone who has excellent, strong gorilla grips, your best defense is to prevent them from getting that grip in the first place. Do not wait for them to establish it. So Professor Robbie's doing an excellent job fighting off those grips. But Professor Marcos has a little something up his sleeve here. Keep watching. We did not see this coming. And he has Robbie wrapped up pretty good in that guard. And without getting that guard open, Professor Robbie isn't going anywhere. Notice the grip fighting, folks. Notice the hand fighting. Whenever you see high-level black belts going at each other, this is what you see. Lots and lots of hand fighting. Hand fighting and grip fighting is key to success in jiu-jitsu. But watch this. And Professor Robbie goes for a little ride. And Marcos comes right up on top. Excellent. And now he's back to the mount. And he comes in for the choke. Folks, the previous 2 days, this is basically where I was. Stuck under Professor Marcos as he went for a submission after submission. And there's the tap. And there you have it, folks. High-level technique from high-level black belts. Thanks again for watching, and remember to like and subscribe.